Where do advocates in the addiction, prevention, treatment, and recovery communities gather to strategize on ways to save lives from substance abuse? And Dr. Ronald Siegel joins us to discuss his work and share techniques of mindfulness.
For itself, how certain patterns of thinking, certain patterns of reacting lock us into patterns of stress, lock us into patterns of reactivity that make us unhappy.
And we revisit the segment on Outreach House. Hello, I'm Art Flesher from Suffolk County Health Department's Division of Community Mental Hygiene. I'm your host for Something of Substance, a monthly video magazine. Welcome back. Each month, we show how substance abuse, mental illness, and developmental delays affect you, your kids, and your community. We'll also give you a few examples of how services in Suffolk County help people find the inner resources they need to tackle their problems.
Where's Mom? Did she forget me? I wonder what happened to her. What if I get left here?
Drugs and alcohol may make you forget your problems for a moment, but that's not all you forget.
My mother worked hard to be in recovery, and I love her for that.
North Shore LIJ Health System sponsored a conference at the Melville Marriott to discuss and collaborate with advocates and agencies here on Long Island. The goal was to strategize ways to identify, address, and combat substance abuse taking place within our communities.
Welcome, we're at the Long Island United's Call to Action in Saving Lives at the Melville Marriott. Today's event was made possible by North Shore LIJ Health System and is a partnership between the Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Providers of New York State, the New York Society of Addiction Medicine and Friends for Recovery, along with the Nassau and Suffolk coalitions. And we are very happy to have over 250 people gathered today to talk about addiction in our community and ways we all can work together to combat this epidemic.
I came to the summit today to be a part of a collaborative effort among providers across Long Island and prevention, treatment, recovery, in order to figure out how we best can work together to reduce the incidence of drug abuse on Long Island.
Our goal today is to bring all of the stakeholders from the community together to have a conversation, to continue the conversation of how we all can work together in providing access to care and helping those in needs of addiction services to find it, to get it, to maintain it.
You know, I work in the field and I have an interest in what's going on, and it's great to see that there are different entities that are here today. It really takes a village to be able to save people, and you know, there are a lot of different players in the game here. There are a lot of people that have the ability to make a difference. This is not really a parents-based event. This is more professionals in the field, legislators, ASAP, ASAM are here, and I think that we have the ability to make a difference if we work together. If we don't work together, it's going to be tough.
The summit is important because it speaks to many issues that we've been talking about for a long time. It mainly how to prevent further substance abuse in our communities and how to include prevention in the discussion.
Prevention is the beginning. Prevention is so very important, especially with our youth, and to giving them outlets in ways of alternative programs for fun, education. It all begins and ends with prevention.
What prevention does is it provides us with awareness and education on how to lower the risk of addiction issues and the addiction disease in our communities and for our children.
I think that prevention is important, and we forget sometimes that we tend to react to things and we don't often plan proactively to address things. And prevention is just that. It's proactive planning so that we can catch things early, so that we can teach children what is important, what they can do to help prevent from becoming addicted, what they can do to help their friends in situations, and how families can get involved in pro-social types of activities that will help them to teach their families and help their families to become prevention focused.
Something like this is so important, in my opinion, because it's all about prevention and educating. And when I was growing up, none of this was going on. You know, there was no talk. Everything was taboo, and nobody wanted to talk about it. And the only solution was just to, like, stricter jail time or that kind of stuff. They're actually trying to attack, you know, the root of the problem, you know, instead of just the symptom.
What brings me here is an opportunity to sit down and engage and discuss and speak with individuals on a common goal that we have to improve the situations that individuals who are impacted by addiction or those who are pursuing recovery find themselves facing. So we have an opportunity to dialogue and articulate our opinions and our ideas about how we can approach a solution in that matter.
I hope that people will learn a lot about what's happening across the island, both the difficulties that we're having as well as the creative programs that are going on, so that people can come together and work more closely to address the needs at a population level so that we can make community change around the incidence of substance abuse.
So today begins with a plenary of some very well-known speakers. Sue Foster from CASA, Andrew Kolodny, as well as Harold Pearl from NIDA in DC are here. And then we will also have a press conference made up of local community folk who have been touched by the tragedies of addiction and are committed to helping to spread the word about the importance of working together and keeping those access to care and recovery open. This afternoon we have a series of educational workshops that focus on the science of recovery, recovery coaching, physical mental health integration, mainstreaming addiction medicine into primary care, and a number of other workshops that are centered on how the community can work together and continue to work together.
I'm here today because I was presenting on the topic of physical mental health integration and about how primary care physicians can work together with behavioral health specialists in order to implement things in their practices, in their primary care offices, to prevent substance abuse, to conduct screenings, and to help people with mental health concerns right at the front door.
Everybody is impacted by this addiction epidemic, and these offer us opportunities to approach, brainstorm, give voices to individuals who don't have voices, and actually just approach the solution. This is what this is, actually, a great approach to trying to find answers to something that's been a problem for a long time.
I think it's really important that Nassau and Suffolk are teaming up together to really try to fight this island-wide epidemic.
Well, it's clear that, you know, we do have an epidemic. They spoke about there being an epidemic here on Long Island. It's clear that the problem is severe. It's clear that the problem has become to the point where we're losing a life every day to opioid overdose. Something has to be done. This is unacceptable. It can't continue this way.
Long Island is a very special place. It has a very good system of care, a number of providers, concerned citizens, a very impressive network. And so the continuing dialogue is always so important. And so this event is just another step in keeping everyone connected and further spreading the word that the community knows a strong network is out there to support them.
We'd like to thank the Suffolk County Police Department, Northport East Northport High School, and all the concerned parents for educating and promoting awareness about the social host law. For more information about the social hosting law, contact the Prevention Resource Center at area code 631.
They'll be fine, I hope.
What if you could prevent a young person from getting hurt or killed?
What should I do?
If you could turn back the clock and stop an underage drinking party from ever happening. Now you can. Pick up the phone and call 1-866-UNDER-21. It's your community, your call, and it's completely anonymous.
Dr. Ronald D. Siegel is the Assistant Clinical Professor of Psychology at Harvard Medical School. He joins us to discuss both mental and social benefits of mindfulness practices.
Thank you, Art. Thank you very much for having me.
What is mindfulness?
Mindfulness is actually a way of relating to our moment-to-moment experience in life. And it's a way of relating to whatever happens with awareness of this present experience and then working to accept whatever arises. And most of us, when we hear that, we think, well, that's easy. I can be aware of what's happening and accepting of it. But actually what happens when we start to do mindfulness practices, which are designed to cultivate mindfulness, is we notice that actually much of the time, at least half of the time, the mind is wandering. It's not actually present to what's happening. It's thinking about the future, it's thinking about the past, and it's kind of angling for how am I going to get pleasurable experiences in the future and how am I going to avoid unpleasant experiences. And the irony is, by not being present, by being so caught in the future and the past, we actually wind up much less happy and in fact can get ourselves caught in all sorts of psychological problems.
Is there a difference between mindfulness and concentration practices?
That's an excellent question. There are actually thousands of different kinds of meditation practices, and some are designed to cultivate concentration per se, which is the ability to focus on an object and keep attention there, and some are designed to cultivate mindfulness, which, as I'll explain, is a little bit different. Concentration practices, where we learn to focus the mind on one object and stay there, are excellent for calming, for being able to savor experience, to actually taste our food, to actually be able to smell the roses. Mindfulness practices take these to a next step so that once we develop the ability to concentrate the mind, we use it to see how the mind creates suffering for itself, how certain patterns of thinking, certain patterns of reacting lock us into patterns of stress, lock us into patterns of reactivity that make us unhappy. So for example, with mindfulness practice, we might get to observe that the constant scheming, trying to come up with ways to feel better and avoid negative feelings might keep us stuck in a problem. A good example of this is noticing what happens when we experience insomnia. When we're having trouble sleeping, it's much worse usually on a Sunday night than on a Friday night. And the reason for that is on Sunday night we start to worry. Uh-oh, I'm never going to get to sleep. I'll be exhausted tomorrow at work. That's going to be so unpleasant. And we start to see how, for example, struggling to get to sleep gets in the way of getting to sleep. And there are countless other examples of watching the mind through mindfulness practice and seeing how we inadvertently get ourselves into trouble that causes a great deal of discomfort and psychological distress.
Dr. Siegel, can you give us an example of mindfulness and its impact on everyday life experiences?
Sure. There are many examples of the ways that mindfulness impacts everyday experiences. Part of it is savoring, just as I mentioned, being able to do what we think of as single tasking, to actually be able to enjoy the moments of our lives because we show up for them. But the other one is it can help us with a lot of problems. It can help us with difficulties like anxiety, like depression, like substance problems. It can even help us in interpersonal relationships. And one of the ways it does this is it fortifies our ability to be not just with pleasant experiences, but also to be with the unpleasant experiences. So that means, for example, if I get nervous with public speaking or I get nervous getting on airplanes, but I develop the ability to be comfortable feeling that nervousness, staying with that anxiety, bringing my mind back into the current moment, then I don't develop a disorder around it. I just get a little nervous and it passes and I can engage fully in life. Similarly, for example, if I might have difficulty in an interaction with my wife. If she says something that upsets me, if I can learn to be able to be present to and open to whatever those upsetting feelings are at the moment, then I might not be so reactive. So I might not immediately go to defend myself or say something that's going to hurt her and start a whole cycle that could turn into an argument. So there are countless examples of ways in which learning to bring attention to the present and learning to be able to be with both the pleasant and the unpleasant experiences that arise actually free us from the kinds of patterns that cause us a lot of distress.
How can parents, teachers, other community members use these practices to improve their interactions?
Any of us who works with other people could probably benefit from some mindfulness practice. At the very first level, what happens when we start taking up these practices is our minds tend to show up more for the interaction. So I'm a clinical psychologist, I work with people in psychotherapy, and I sometimes joke, you know, therapy goes better if we both arrive in the room. But similarly, parenting goes better if we both arrive in the room. We all know, any of us who have raised kids know that when we're distracted, kids know it immediately. They pick up on it right away, and they simply don't behave the same way as when we're really present with them. So simply developing the capacity to be present becomes quite helpful. And that's the same if we're teaching, if we're doing any kind of thing that deals with other people. The other thing that happens in these practices is we become more and more able to both enjoy pleasant experiences and stay with and not get too reactive to unpleasant experiences. And whether this is me as a psychotherapist needing to be able to sit with somebody who's very sad or very angry or very frightened and not get too frightened myself of the experience, but being able to really connect with them in this, or for that matter, a parent being able to be with their child who is very sad or the child who's very angry or very frightened and not be overwhelmed by the fact that the child's distressed, but be able to feel the child's feeling and yet stay with them and provide a sense of safety becomes very powerful. And the same is true for a teacher, for a nurse, for a police officer, for a physician, really anybody who's working with other people, particularly working with other people who are experiencing distress.
Dr. Siegel, are there resources available to our viewers to learn more about mindfulness practices?
With growing interest in mindfulness practice in the mental health field and in medicine, there are more and more resources available for looking into this. At a certain point, I was asked to write a book about how to develop these practices in one's own life and how to use these practices to deal with everyday problems, things like anxiety, depression, struggles in parenting, even the difficulties that come with aging. So one resource is this one. This is a book that I happen to be the author of. This is called The Mindfulness Solution: Everyday Practices for Everyday Problems. And linked to the book is a website. It's mindfulness-solution.com. And the website is free, and on that website listeners can find lots of different meditation practices. There's perhaps 20 different practices there suited for different purposes and different life situations, but certainly breath meditation, eating meditation, walking meditation, some interpersonal meditations, and those are free for anybody who'd like to download them, try them on their own, try them on their iPod and the like. The instructions for when you might use one instead of the other are contained in the book.
We would like to thank Dr. Siegel for his informative and useful promotion of mindfulness practices. For more information on mindfulness practices and techniques, please visit www.mindfulness-solution.com. Up next, we have an archive segment on the Outreach House. Stay tuned. Dealing with an out-of-control teenager's behavior is nothing short of a nightmare for most parents and guardians. In our archive segment this month, we revisit the Outreach House. Their facilities have become a beacon of hope and motivation for positive change in many families' lives.
Our philosophy is building healthy lives, and Outreach looks at working not just with the teenager, but the entire family. And we operate from a perspective that it's a family-based model. You know, you'll hear the kids here talk about their brothers and sisters in treatment. This is their house, hence Outreach House. It's their other family. They have their family at home and their family while they're in treatment, which really breaks the frame. You know, treatment is about helping. It's a family-based model versus being in an institution or a facility.
My experience with my son Steve is that at 13 years old, he started using drugs and alcohol. So we went through multiple different schools, facilities that he was discharged from. Nothing worked. Finally, I found out about Outreach from a social worker at a hospital where he was finally admitted.
Growing up, I was always getting in trouble, always in trouble at school, with family.
I started hanging out with my sister and her friends, and they were like partiers, so I started drinking, I started doing drugs a little bit.
Before I came here, I was in an outpatient facility, and I was really messing up there.
I ended up getting in a lot of trouble at school, and they decided they didn't want me there anymore.
And I was on school pins, and then parent pins as well, and I ended up violating that.
And they put me in outpatient services because I violated probation, and they extended it 6 months. I ended up violating again, and this was my only option. This was my parents' last hope.
Before I got here, I was just like very non-compliant with my family. I didn't listen to them, anything that they said.
And then I guess my relationship that I was in definitely triggered me.
I wasn't gonna make it, I was gonna be dead. I was going through a lot of hard times, a lot of trouble, and this was my only option, really. It was either this or jail, and jail would have solved anything.
We work with kids as young as 12 and up to the age of 17, just upon their 18th birthday at admission. So we really focus on that school-age adolescent, which is a really, really difficult population, as you can imagine, with everything that's happening in the schools. So that's really what we've specialized in and made our expertise.
I found out about outreach through our school district. Having problems with our son as far as behavioral and learning, until we found out that he did have a drug addiction. And we got together with the school district, and they helped us find outreach.
We realized that rehab was essential for our family when we no longer had control over my son, and he stopped listening to us, did things behind our back, whether it was stealing, lying. We couldn't control him anymore.
And we surrendered to it, you know, when nothing is helping, and you know that as a parent you're helpless and desperate. You know, you have to have faith in something. So, you know, I grasped onto this like it was, you know, my last hope.
You know, we get referrals from schools, we get referrals from probation, from family court, and we get referrals from a mom or dad who just realizes their child needs help, and they can schedule an appointment and bring their child directly here. They meet, the appointment's divided up where part of the appointment is with the child themselves, part is with the family, and then the third part with all of them together. And our assessment coordinator, who does a wonderful job, really kind of stabilizes the family, because they're in crisis at that point. Everything is broken down, communication is broken down, they're in desperate need of help, and she's able to kind of, you know, help stabilize them, get the information, and then we get to see if it's a really good match for our program here.
Outreach gave me structure every day. That's something I need. I've never had structure in my life. I never cared about authority, never listened to what they said.
Just taught me a lot of discipline and stuff. I had like no discipline on the outside. Like they just brought me like back together, just sober and healthy.
They definitely transition you back appropriately. Structure taught me a lot of stuff. Having rules and regulations, everything like kind of sorted out for me. I definitely need some structure in my life.
My son's been here 4 months, and the change is amazing. In the beginning, he was very rebellious. He eloped, he left the facility.
There's no time to really slip up. If you do, you know, you learn from it. I've learned from all the mistakes I've made, and I know not to make the same mistakes in the future.
But now he just hit a point and had an epiphany, and now he's going with the program. He's following the structure, he's following the rules, and he's made it into the next phase of treatment. He's a different person. He's brighter, he's happier. He just looks wonderful, and he's behaving like a young man.
When a family first gets here, there's a lot of conflict. The family is in a complete state of disarray. They're frightened, they're hurt, you know, and they're nervous. They know they need help, but they're also, you know, reluctant about handing their child over, as you can imagine.
When I first arrived at Outreach, my emotions they varied. It was sort of a bittersweet day. It was a happy day and a sad day. It was a happy day because I brought my son to a place where he may not lose his life. A place that I can tell you has saved my son's life.
You know, Outreach really believes in treating children and families in the communities they live in. You know, we're a family-centered model, so we do a lot of intense family therapy. It's very difficult to do that when your child's 100 miles, 150 miles away. And, you know, so the benefit of being here and being able to service both Nassau and Suffolk County is tremendous, because parents can come here multiple times during the week and get really involved in the child's therapy. You know, we put them into a parallel treatment process, and you need to be close by and in their community to do that.
I believed in the program, hook, line, and sinker. I did everything they told me to do, because again, you know, this was my son's life, you know, which would have been, you know, down the toilet if it wasn't for this program.
The relationship between myself, my husband, the whole family, and my son has changed amazingly. We have conversations now where for the last few years we haven't had those conversations, you know, talked about family things, done things as a family. He's come home on pass now once or twice, and we do things together and talk about things, and that's something that was severely lacking.
My relationship with my family, my parents, is unbelievably good. I go on pass and it's smooth the whole time. I don't get into one argument. It's just we talk like real people. I could talk to them about anything. They're supporting, they're loving, they're caring.
I've always been really close with my family, but now it's just I have like a special love for them. that I will never have for like anybody else. They've done so much for me.
When we first brought our son to outreach, I had a sense of relief. I felt like this was the place for him to be. It was the first night in a year, the first day he was here, that I slept. I felt that he was in a safe environment, that he was protected, and we just felt really good about our decision.
In coming to outreach and talking to other people and the different walks of life, although we're all different, we are all the same. We have children that are addicts. It is a disease, and it's a disease like any other that needs to be coped with. And this facility and this program has helped me immensely.
My little brother looks up to me as a role model now. It's a good feeling.
Just gonna stay away from negative peers and just like have like new friends and just have like a happy, healthy life with my family.
And I just want to live a happy and sober life.
For information about Outreach House, they may be reached at area code 631-231-3232. I'm Art Flesher. Join us again next month for more of Something of Substance.